You ever had a morning where you just knew trouble was coming? Like, you can feel it in your bones before a word gets spoken? That was me, standing on my own driveway, when I saw the HOA president strutting up in that blinding neon pink coat, swinging her clipboard like she was about to conduct a raid instead of a neighborhood check-in. I swear if you listen close, you could hear her heels slicing through the cold air, sharp, impatient, entitled, making sure the whole street knew the queen was on patrol. But even then, with my coffee steaming in one hand and the other still half asleep in my hoodie pocket, I couldn't have predicted just how spectacularly her arrogance was about to wreck her own house. Not mine, hers. She didn't say a word to me, didn't even make eye contact, just waved her perfectly manicured hand at the two HOA maintenance guys idling behind her, pointed up at the side of my house, right where my heat cables ran along the roofline. These weren't Christmas lights, mind you. I installed those cables, legally, after spending 22 years as a military HVAC specialist in places that make our winters look like Florida. Those cables are the only reason my pipes haven't exploded during every cold snap since I bought this place. And yeah, I had the city permit to prove it, signed, stamped, and laminated, just in case the clipboard patrol came knocking. But Karen, let's call her that because, honestly, what else fits? She was on a mission. This installation violates community aesthetics, she declared, reading straight from her own little HOA rulebook, never mind what the law or basic physics had to say about it. The board has voted to remove it. The board. Who is this mysterious board? Turns out, just Karen and her inner circle of folks who think a stray dandelion is a moral failing. I told her flat out, calm as I could manage, that those cables weren't some eyesore, they were insurance. I even held up the permit, right there in the driveway, but she just rolled her eyes, flicked her wrist, and kept marching like she'd won a gold medal in stubbornness. Her guys went to work, unscrewing brackets, yanking down my heat cables, just tossing them in a pile like scrap wire. My coffee mug might as well have been filled with ice water by then, the way my hands were shaking, not with fear, but with that slow burn you get when you know you're about to watch a preventable disaster unfold. I warned her. Twice. If you pull those cables, you're trespassing. I told her loud enough for everyone to hear. And you'll be responsible for whatever happens next. She didn't even pause, just sniffed, I have the authority, and stomped away, her fuchsia coat burning a hole through the winter gloom. You ever try arguing with someone who'd rather win a petty argument than keep their own house safe? That's Karen every time. She didn't care that I'd spent half my life keeping bases running in -40, or that the forecast had an Arctic blast barreling straight for our little suburb. She cared about one thing, curb appeal. Not safety, not common sense, just making sure the street looked like a magazine cover. Well, she got her wish, and what followed turned her dream home into the inside of a snow globe, one you'd never want to shake. That night, the temperature crashed, -17 by midnight, cold enough that your breath freezes before it leaves your mouth. I couldn't sleep, not because I was scared, but because I knew exactly what was coming and couldn't stop it. I sat at my kitchen table, every permit, certificate, and weather assessment spread out like I was prepping for trial, except this time, physics was the judge. At first light, I checked my gutters. Where the heat cables used to be, there was just naked metal, already frosting up, tiny crystals spreading like a rash. Still, I figured I'd give Karen and her board one last chance to do the right thing. I sent an email, polite, professional, CC'd the city for good measure. I explained, step by step, what those cables did and why removing them during an Arctic blast was, frankly, nuts. 10 minutes later, Karen replies, "Your tone is hostile and inappropriate. The board has spoken. This matter is closed. No signature. No thanks. Just pure, undiluted Karen." By noon, the cold had teeth. I watched kids sprinting home from school, parents hustling groceries inside, everybody feeling that old, animal dread, the kind that tells you deep down, this isn't just another cold snap. Across the street, Karen stood outside, laughing on her phone, coat blazing, totally oblivious. I figured, all right, one last time. I walked over with my permits, showed her everything, and told her flat out, "It's dropping to -15 tonight. Your pipes are gonna freeze if you're not ready." She just laughed and called me soldier boy, told me I was being dramatic, said her pipes had never frozen before. You ever try to save someone who's hell-bent on learning things the hard way? That was the last real conversation we had, because after that, it was all up to the weather. When the blast hit, it was like standing inside a wind tunnel full of knives. I did what I could, let faucets drip, cranked up the thermostat, opened all the cabinet doors. Not perfect, not without my cables, but I'd survived worse. Karen's house. Nothing. Curtains drawn, no signs of prep. She thought she could beat the cold by pretending it wasn't coming. Around 8 p.m., I heard it, a dull thud inside her walls. Most people would have missed it, but I knew. Pipes contracting, metal straining, the house's warning cry. A little later, I saw Karen out on her porch, shivering, but still acting like the universe was inconveniencing her on purpose. I called across the street. Might want to open your cabinets, let the warm air circulate. She just shot back. I don't need your advice, and stomped back inside. By midnight, the temperature bottomed out. My walls were holding, barely, but across the street, I could see ice crawling up the windows, gutters sagging with frozen runoff. It wasn't if something would break, it was when. At 12:47, it happened. A gunshot cracked from her house, loud enough that my chest felt it. Then another, and suddenly Karen's silhouette raced past her living room window, screaming. I stood in my hallway, listening as the sounds grew. Pop, crack, bang, pipes surrendering, water flooding, ice claiming everything it touched. Then, in the chaos, Karen burst onto her porch in a soaked robe, shrieking, This is your fault. I called back, calm as could be. No, Karen. Physics wanted this. You just gave it permission. Another boom, another ceiling caving in. Water poured out, freezing midair. Karen sobbed, Please, make it stop. I'll put the cables back. I'll pay for everything. But you can't bargain with the weather, you know. You can't bluff your way out of frozen pipes. She didn't even know where the main shut-off valve was. I crossed the street, headlamp and tool bag in hand, old habits. Not because I owed her, but because if electricity met all that water, it'd be a whole new kind of disaster. Her house was a meat locker. Ice on every surface, the chandelier smashed on the tile, water still dripping in thick, freezing ropes. I killed the power, found the main shutoff buried in the garage, and wrenched it closed. The roaring slowed, then stopped. Only the steady, mournful drip of defeat remained. Karen looked at me, actually looked, not the way she looked through me before. She wrapped herself in a survival blanket, shivering so hard her teeth chattered. I thought if it looked perfect, it was perfect, she whispered. Perfection's overrated, I said. Survivable is better. For once, she didn't argue. By dawn, her house was a crime scene. City trucks and news vans parked up and down the block, crews stringing caution tape, steam pouring off industrial heaters trying to save what little could be saved. Chief Ramirez from City Code Compliance came by herself, shook my hand with an iron grip, and told Karen point blank her actions were under investigation. Her house was a total loss, and her insurance company had all the paperwork they needed to know this was on her and the HOA. Karen stared at my house, dry, warm, alive, like she was seeing it for the first time. Later that morning, Karen's little HOA inner circle knocked on my door, all looking like they'd aged a decade overnight. They tried to talk their way out, tried to call it an act of God, but I had the receipts, the emails, the video, the city report. You try to spin this, I said, and I'll make sure there's nothing left of your little HOA but a cautionary tale. For the first time, they listened. Winston, the only one with any sense, nodded and said, We should have listened. And that was that, the end of the Karen regime. Karen lost her house, her friends, and whatever reputation she'd built, traded it all for a lesson about humility that most folks never get. I told her, being in charge doesn't mean you know what you're doing. Sometimes it just means no one's brave enough to stop you until nature does. She nodded quietly, and I'll be honest, I almost felt sorry for her. The thought finally came, slow and pitiless. Karen's place had to be gutted, rebuilt from scratch. Her insurance denied most of the claim, citing documented negligence. The HOA emergency meeting was quick, resignations all around, new rules passed. My heat cables, reinstalled at HOA expense, this time with Karen herself watching the install, permit in hand. She even brought me a new set of cables and a brass plaque engraved, in grateful memory of a night the cold taught us who was really in charge. Said she wanted it mounted right under my gutter, where the old cables used to be. By next winter, her old lot was just green grass and cherry trees, the plaque gleaming in the pale sun. Karen stopped by sometimes, no fuchsia, just a plain parka and a tired but honest smile. She even took up the new position, infrastructure and safety advisor, making sure nobody ever had to learn the hard way again. She'd straighten the wreath under the plaque, look over and say, "Looks good, doesn't it?" And for once, I agreed. No more mailbox drama. No more perfection contests. Just neighbors, coffee, and a cul-de-sac that finally figured out how to listen to experience and the weather. So, let me ask you, have you ever seen someone lose everything because they thought being in charge meant they knew best? Ever watched karma, or a cold front, set things straight better than any court could? Drop a comment below. Tell me your wildest HOA disaster, or what you think real justice looks like when arrogance meets reality. Sometimes, justice doesn't roar. It just waits, cold and patient, until everyone finally wakes up.